Hey, y'all, welcome back to a Friday, August 2nd, 2024 edition here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. We've got a jam-packed fun show for you guys here today with 991 The Sports Animals, Josh Ward, to talk all things Tennessee football. We talked about the job Josh Heupel has done to this point here at Tennessee and why it's easy to take for granted the situation that he came into when he first arrived in Knoxville, and how quickly he has normalized a winning culture in the football program since he has been here. We talk about the wide receiver battle and why that might be the sneakiest and most interesting fall camp battle for Tennessee this year. Chaz Nimrod, Squirrel White, what does that slot battle look like this August? So that was a fun conversation as well. And then Arion Carter, is he the next Vols linebacker star opposite of Keenan Peely in the two deep here for Tennessee this fall? Who's the next James Pearce? Is Joshua Joseph set up to form a dynamic duo at the Leo spot with Pearce this fall? Joseph's and Pearce in that regard. And then we also talk about Jackson Lampley. Does he end up winning that left guard spot? Is it Andre Karich? Is it Chan Umarov? Is it Bison Lang? Really interesting to see what ultimately happens at the left guard spot here in fall camp and where Tennessee ultimately decides to go. So a lot of fun position battles and fall camp here in the full swing of things in Knoxville. So all that and more coming up with Josh right after this. But don't forget, folks, you can watch this show on YouTube, youtube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast. Like and subscribe if you have not already done so. Well over 2,000 subs here as we continue to build a little bit more each and every day. So if you prefer to watch your video podcast or watch your podcast, you can easily do so. Clips, shorts, all that good stuff, and full episodes every day here on the YouTube channel. So make sure you like and subscribe these videos if you have not already done so. You can also listen to us on the audio platforms if that is how you would prefer to listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or however you get your podcasts. We're available, and please make sure if you're a frequent listener of the program and you like what you hear and you haven't already done so, please hit that pause button right now and leave this show a 5-star rating and write us a review. Helps other people find the show, and it helps this very show continue to grow. Go check us out at chasethomaspodcast.com to learn all about what we got cooking here on this show each and every day. A little bit about the show and all that good stuff, past episodes, links, all that good stuff there. And then you can also email the program at chasethomaspodcast@gmail.com. Keep up with us on the socials, Pod Chase Thomas on Twitter, Facebook.com/Chase Thomas Writer, and all that good stuff as well. All right, Uncle Dan, let's go.
The Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I am now joined by 991 The Sports Animals, Josh Ward of Josh and Swain, as you can see on youtube.com/Chase Thomas podcast. Behind him in the studios, Josh and Swain just wrapping up here and jumping on with me here. Josh, do you get a break? Like, do you take a quiet walk after the shows? What do you do to decompress after talking for hours at a time?
So I actually do try to decompress and calm my mind a little bit, because 3 hours is a lot for me to be talking. I'm an introvert, and talking and being social is not my strength. So trying to do that nonstop for 3 straight hours is tough. So every day is different though. So some days we're out on remote and I'm leaving to go from that to whatever's next, or I've got some small kids. So sometimes I go from the show to that, and some days I have a little downtime. So if I have some downtime, I try to take advantage of it, calm the mind, because I'll be back at something very quickly right after that.
Do you do the movie by yourself at all? Because I'm a big introvert too, and I think a lot of people probably misconstrue that we talk for a living and stuff like that, that we are extroverts by nature. But I'm certainly far more introverted and love a good solo movie. Love a good solo afternoon movie. Are you the same way or no?
I can happily watch a movie solo. The 3 children I mentioned have made it more difficult to find the window of time. So like my wife and I, when we watch a movie, we almost watch it like a series, because watching all the way through, we have a not an official, but like a cutoff time where if we start it too late, we're not going to make it all the way through and we got to finish it some other time. So I can, pre-kids, I could easily sit down and watch a movie. So
hold on, what movies are you breaking up into parts? Like what? Give me an example, because I'm trying to think of how I would, like, when you're jogging your memory and you're watching a movie like a show. Give me an example here, Josh.
No, it's very unofficial. So when we break it up into parts, it's, hey, I'm about to fall asleep. We need to stop here.
Okay.
So there's no pinpoint time where we say, hey, if we get to this point, this would be a good stopping point. We don't like Google where there's like the Run P app where you can figure out where you can miss. We don't look for those points. We just if one of us is starting to doze off because we're old and tired, that's how we do it.
Hey, well, I'll be there before you know it. My wife, I just look over to see if it's a go ahead, because I'm naturally more of a night owl where I'm like, how much do you care about what we're watching right now? Can I finish this one out, or do you want me to hit pause on this one? You always got to do the look over, because if she's like, I can watch it later, or I'm good, I don't need to watch the rest, then it's all full steam ahead. But like you said, when you're married and then maybe one day kids here on this end, but you gotta make sacrifices, you gotta make choices, so you're not
that's all it is. By the way, none of this is complaining. It's about choices and what do you want versus what are you willing to trade, because that's what it comes down to. That's for everybody. It's just what position are you in, and what negotiating power do you have. Absolutely.
Which naturally brings us to the Tennessee Volunteers football team, Josh Ward. There's no easy segue there, but it's something that's obviously we're taping this on as day 2 of fall camp has wrapped up here. And one of the things I've been wondering, I talked to Graham Coffey of Dog Central yesterday, kind of like one of the things that is going to be super fascinating from his perspective and the Georgia perspective is that what does Heupel's offense look like with mostly blue chippers? And because we saw him overachieve in the offense, part of the appeal early on was that it raised the floor and that you were able to get to 10-2 in year 2 and lose so many players and just kind of pick your spots in the portal and still do a lot of stuff with guys who weren't even Heupel guys, by and large. And the Bryles type scheme that he runs ultimately still lends itself to less talented teams being able to have a lot of success in the regular season. But then they have run up against the Georgia of the world, and that's been a different story for Heupel. Is that something that you're really, really fascinated by when you look at, they have to go to Athens this year, obviously, and with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, how Tennessee stacks up there. But is that something you're monitoring, is like, what does Heupel do offensively? What changes to make this offense more sturdy against the big dogs? And how much does it change with so many blue chippers because he's recruited so well over the last 2 years?
Yeah, there is a lot of talent to work with. There's experience as well with guys like Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins coming back, and John Campbell in his second year in the program, 7th in college on the right side of the offensive line. Sampson at running back has proven that he can make plays in this offense. So you have that to build around with guys like Chris Brazzell coming in and Lance Hurd at left tackle. And these guys have to prove what they can do, but nobody's really questioning what their talent is. Depth, I guess, is a question if they deal with injuries on the offensive line. And running back play behind Sampson has to prove what it can do. But that comes back to the offense. We trust Josh Heupel's offense, I think, overall to succeed if it has protection up front and good quarterback play, which I think is assumed at this point with Nico. He still has to prove what he can do over the course of a season. But when we talk about question marks, Nico is down the list in conversations I have with a lot of people. So what do they do in Norman, Oklahoma, week 4, the SEC opener, when they go on the road and they have good defenders and they have a really good defensive coach leading that program in Brent Venables? There's our first test. Georgia's so tough for everybody. So what they've been able to do against Tennessee's offense can apply for different reasons against everybody because of the personnel that they have at their disposal. Alabama had really good defenders in 2022 and couldn't do anything to stop Tennessee's offense. The tempo and the potential at quarterback and healthy an offensive line that looks like it should be really good in the SEC, that is why I'm a believer in this Tennessee offense getting back to what we saw in 2022. I'm not saying they're going to go score 50 points a game. That's just a huge ask, and that's what they were close to 2 years ago. But being a team that can score against just about everybody, including an Oklahoma-type team or Florida and Alabama when they come to Knoxville, I think Tennessee has a really good chance to be that again this season.
And to build off that, did you ever think that when Heupel, like I know it's hard to go back and remember like your immediate takes here when Heupel was hired 3 years ago, but did you ever think he would get to a point where we're looking at a potential top 5 recruiting class ever in the Heupel era at Tennessee? Like we've seen in the past Tennessee getting to that point every now and then, but we've never actually seen it with Heupel. And to this question, I think what a lot of people wondered about, especially early on, was can he get to that top 5 level? Can they recruit with the Georgias and the Alabamas and the Floridas and the LSUs in the conference? I mean, did you foresee that as to where Tennessee's at right now in recruiting?
I don't know that I expected it. I don't know that I really thought of it that way. I more wondered, can he get to that level? And I think the answer is proving to be yes. We'll see how the class finishes out. They still have to land David Sanders, but I think they're in a great position to do that, and landing a 5-star player to go with a class that's top 7 or 8 overall right now. And they hit the top 5 in one service this past weekend. That's knocking on the door. I did think that Josh Heupel would have a chance to come in and be really good offensively and get the program back to a respectable level. And with Tennessee's resources, if you combine that with a stable program and a coach that's respected, then you can recruit at a top 5 level. Butch Jones did it very quickly at Tennessee with that 14 class and then the 15 class that was ranked so high there in the top 5. And I don't think there's anything special about Butch Jones compared to Josh Heupel if we're talking just a recruiting standpoint. I'm not comparing the coaches. I think every Tennessee fan is going to take Heupel overall. But going from UCF to Tennessee, I don't think it was a totally fair comparison what he did at UCF to Tennessee, because I think there's a pretty high floor of what you should be able to do as a recruiter at Tennessee. So knowing the success now, like in 2022, when they went and won 10 games, then 11 with the bowl, I thought, okay, they can take this to a really high level. They can do this more quickly than I expected. And what I hear behind the scenes about how people respect the way things are done, that also caused me to believe, and now we're in an NIL era where Tennessee has some advantages versus a lot of the schools, that's a combination that creates a lot of opportunity for Tennessee. So I never really thought yes or no, Josh Heupel can or can't get Tennessee to a top 5 recruiting level. I more wondered, but everything he's done to this point has helped build them to be in this position, and it's paying off.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like when you look at the Florida aspect of it, because like when he was hired, like there was just, I thought, because I really liked Mullen. I've always been a Dan Mullen guy, and I think he's overachieved where he's gone. And the same kind of questions I think came up with Mullen at Florida that Heupel has had at Tennessee, where Mullen extrapolated every ounce of success he could get at Mississippi State, getting the number 1 overall. Like that's just like the fact that Mullen was able to pull that off was incredible. And I think Heupel has, and one of the things with Mullen, the downfall was really just the recruiting, where it's like it wasn't bad, it just wasn't top 5, top 7 every year. And you look at it and you're like, man, if they just waited another year or two with the NIL stuff coming down the pike, like maybe you should have just waited on Mullen. Like how different does the Mullen tenure at Florida work? And I think, like you said, I think it's the right marriage between Tennessee resources and what Josh Heupel brings to the forefront, right? Like you get the X's and O's guy and you just get a stable coach who hires really well. I think he's done an exceptional job in the hiring department, but also just it seems like it's a good marriage, and it's just stability that and a high floor that Tennessee's not had in a long time. And I think Florida overlooked that because it's like you see it again with Billy Napier. It's just most of Florida's history is actually pretty bad outside of the Spurrier and Meyer years. Like those two were special coaches. By and large, it's pretty messy. And Heupel is just, everything's just normal. Like you just kind of take for granted, I think as a Tennessee fan that's now been going into year 4, that he changed the course of the program early and has just kept rolling. Like he's lost 1 home game in the last 2 years. It's been pretty nice. Like you're not on upset alert really ever. The games he has lost, they're road SEC games for the most part. Those are tough ones. Like it's kind of amazing that he has just kind of made this all feel so normal so fast in Knoxville.
Yeah, there's not been a lot of drama.
Yeah,
certainly by Tennessee or SEC standards from how things have gone over the last 10 to 15 years. So I think what Josh Heupel has done is he's brought some normalcy in his position, which It's maybe uncommon
Yeah.
for head coaches in college football. But he's done that. He's made things fun with what they do offensively. And I think Josh Heupel has embraced what he has to do, but also with what the people around him need to do. I don't look at Josh Heupel as this guy that is dedicated 24/7 to recruiting, and that's his main priority. Hey, we just got to go get players and everything will figure itself out. I think Josh Heupel is very much about ball. He is very much about planning and figuring out what they're going to do with the personnel that they have. He also recognizes you have to have players, you have to have talent if you're going to go compete with Georgia and Alabama and Texas and Ohio State to try to win championships ultimately. So the people that are in place around him, his assistant coaches, the support staff, we are in the NIL era. So the resources that Tennessee has had there, that has helped UT in what they're doing on the recruiting trail. So it all has combined to work, but Josh Heupel's in charge and he has made sure that that has worked together. So I don't look at Josh Heupel like we think of Ed Orgeron as a recruiting head coach, or even like we think about Nick Saban, like with his dedication and focus on recruiting. I don't think that's Josh Heupel, but he knows the importance of it, and he knows the importance of having the right people in place and everybody working together to make it happen. And again, he still has a personality that I think is attractive to players. I think the players who have played for Josh Heupel have appreciated him so much that that message gets delivered to recruits who hear it and believe it. And that's really paid off too.
I like it. Which fall camp position battle has you most locked in right now, Josh Ward?
Probably wide receiver. It's a deep group. They have a few guys that are proven, but still even proven guys that have to show what they can do, like Brew McCoy coming back from injury. Squirrel White, can he be even better this year? Dante Thornton trying to redeem himself. Chaz Nimrod trying to take a step to another level where he is counted on more. And then Chris Brazzell coming in. Mike Matthews, a 5-star wide receiver. Will they play more guys at wide receiver this season? So it's a position group that we like to talk about. They're the ones making plays in the offense. But I think it's also intriguing from a personnel standpoint and how that group will be planned out, how deep they'll go. Will they actually play more guys at wide receiver? All of those questions to go with the players that we're talking about individually, I think makes wide receiver the most interesting.
What's your gut say? Do you think they rotate more than we've ever seen, or do you think it still will be a pretty locked in 3 or 4 guys that Kelsey Pope ends up trusting?
Yeah, I think they probably play a little bit more. I think they have more guys that will probably deserve time on the field, but it's not like they're going to be running guys in and out every single play. The offense is still going to be going fast when you're out there. You're out there. So my guess is that they're deeper throughout each game in players that they use. But yeah, I say that not knowing injury situation. Mike Matthews is a guy that still has to prove what he can do, but I think he's a real SEC talent, and it's going to be difficult to keep him off the field. I think there are a number of guys that are going to deserve playing time, and they'll get it. But let's see that. Let's see if Dante Thornton is better. Let's see if Chaz Nimrod is a guy that they trust. Caleb Webb is a guy that I think is an SEC wide receiver. But this offense shows that it's difficult to get on the field if you're not one of those first 3 or 4 guys. Is it easier this year? That's why I think that position group is so interesting to watch. Talent, personnel, storylines, all of that combined. And they have to be better than a year ago. That was a disappointing group a year ago. So it's a bounce back season for Tennessee's wide receivers.
What did your gut say the main 3 will be as of right now? August 1st, Josh Ward. Where do you
What does my gut say? What now?
Like, who's your 3? Who do you think it ends up being out of the gate here against Chattanooga?
Brew McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say Chris Brazzell. Squirrel White is probably the guy in the slot, but I think Chaz Nimrod is pushing him. I think that.
So you think that's real? The Chaz Nimrod buzz is real at the slot?
So I do a show with Jason Swain. He's a former Tennessee wide receiver. I respect his opinion more than my own when it comes to wide receiver play. And he is a believer in Chaz Nimrod. So he has not said on the air that Chaz is a starter. He's one of the first 3. But he has said Chaz Nimrod is a guy to watch. And I watched him at practice day 1, and he looks like he's developed. We had him on the show a couple months ago. He's an impressive guy that gets it. He understands the work that he has to put in. He arrived at Tennessee as a recruit, having to show he needed or he deserved a scholarship offer. He had to prove it at camp, and he did that. He arrived as a less heralded recruit. He had to prove that he can play in the SEC. I think he's done that. Now he's going up against more talked about players to try to show that he belongs on the field over a few of those guys at least. And I think he will do that. So is he a starter? I don't know, but I think he's a guy that's going to play for sure.
I like it. This year's James Pearce, on the defensive line will be who? Who comes out of nowhere and has a really good year on the defensive line that Tennessee fans aren't familiar with?
Well, I don't think anybody does that on the defensive line. I think Joshua Josephs is a year better and will be a playmaker at times for Tennessee. I think Tyree West will have a chance to be that on the defensive line. He came on our show and said his goal is 10 sacks. And the first list of goals he handed out were team-oriented, but we kind of pushed him. So, okay, what about for you? And he said 10 sacks. And that I would be surprised to see. But that tells you where his mindset is. And he was a highly touted guy 2 years ago. So those are players to watch. They love a bunch of guys. They love the young players from everything I hear. Tyree Weathersby back from injury and David Hobbs. But I don't think they're going to burst onto the scene just because it's so difficult to do in a deep rotation on the defensive line. My breakout guy is Arion Carter. So he's at linebacker, second-year player, chose Tennessee over Alabama, played some as a freshman, season ended early because of injury. He has a world of talent. So my breakout player behind that group is at linebacker with Arion Carter.
And they need Carter and Peely to stay healthy. Like, they can be a little banged up and be okay on the defensive line. Linebacker is the one where, I mean, linebacker and really safety. Like, safety would get dicey in a hurry too. Because I like some people worry about corner. I'm like, you could still move Jordan Thomas down. You can move Christian Charles down. You can move, like, there's Caleb Beasley will factor in at some. Like, I'm not as concerned about the cornerback depth. It's more of like they get banged up a little bit. The safety spots, like, it could get messy in a hurry, right?
Yeah, I have questions throughout the secondary, even corner. If they lose one of the top guys who both have to prove what they can do in the SEC, there are reasons to be excited, by the way. Don't get me wrong about Jermod McCoy. I've heard really good things about him and what he brings at corner, transferring in from Oregon State. And Ricky Gibson is a legit athlete. Like, that's something that just shows, and a lot of people in the media have talked about day one. Look at the guys running around out there, and you just see more athletes, you see more speed. And that comes back to our recruiting conversation of what they've done. But if one of those top guys go down at corner, I've got some real concerns against some of the receivers they'll face on the schedule. But safety, for sure, that's the case. Those guys have to prove what they can do among the starters. Jordan Thomas is a player that I think is kind of he's under the radar in general conversation because it's easy to get excited about Blue Carter coming in as a freshman. But I often think about, well, who do coaches trust? And I think that they've shown they've trusted Jordan Thomas more as the last couple of years have come along, and he's been next in position to have a chance to start. But let's see how he performs in the SEC. So I'm not saying he's a proven commodity. I just think from a coaching standpoint, they probably have more trust in him, or they're thinking more about Jordan Thomas than the fans are, or we in the media are at different points. But the secondary is, I think, as a group, the biggest question on this Tennessee football team.
Interesting. Final two here real quick. Who is a surprise starter to come out of camp? And then I have a Raiders thing for you real quick.
A surprise starter. Well, I don't know if I'm ready to make a prediction of a surprise starter, but I would say candidates in that conversation would be Chaz Nimrod at wide receiver. Yeah. Like if he's a starter, if he beats out Squirrel White, I think that would surprise a lot of people. Left guard is an interesting battle. You have a number of candidates. So, I think I don't know who would be most surprising. Maybe Jackson Lampley is the guy that would be surprising. Which
I feel
is
like Sham Mumarov would be the most surprising, right? Maybe at left guard.
Okay. Yeah, maybe so.
I feel like a lot of people have penciled in Lampley a little bit because he's been. I mean, Carriage has been out. I don't know. Maybe it would. Yeah.
So I guess those are my best answers. I don't know that I have a great answer as far as a surprise starter. I'm giving you a couple of candidates there. I think Nico's pretty locked in at quarterback. I feel good about that.
How do you feel about Sampson at running back one? You feel good there?
I think he's probably the first guy in. Yeah, I think they go with Dylan
Cooper
Sampson.
At center.
I don't want to jump to any conclusion there. Maybe. No, Cooper is. So those are the three, I think, most difficult players to replace. And straight up the middle there on offense, in order: Nico at quarterback, Cooper at center, Dylan Sampson at running back.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll see on that in that regard how it all unfolds. But they absolutely need to, after what we saw last year, Cooper's got to stay healthy. That is paramount, maybe more than anything else this fall to get where they need to go. Because I mean, they're playing big teams out of the gate. Like Tennessee, one of the things I've written about that got locked away in the chamber here in a couple days is just that like Tennessee, part of what helped them a lot in 2022 was they got a lot of schedule luck. Like they got LSU at 11 a.m. in Baton Rouge. That helped and gave them all the momentum in the world for Florida or for Alabama right after. And Alabama was not sandwiched in between an emotional game against Florida. Like Tennessee got over the Florida hump and they felt really good. And then they went to Baton Rouge for an 11 a.m. kick and just weren't afraid. Got rid of that. Got over that very quickly. This year, like Nico's got to play 2 road SEC games and then a neutral site game against NC State before he even gets to experience Neyland Stadium and just the friendly confines of how Tennessee's played. Because like I've said, they lost 1 home game in the last 2 years under Josh Heupel, and it was to the best program in the country over the last 5 years. So that's the one thing I have worried where it's like, I think a lot of folks are feeling like 2022, and it's great that you get Florida and Bama at home again. Obviously, he sweeps them in 2022, but part of that is they weren't back-to-back, and that's 2 longtime rivals, and I think Florida's going to be better this year. Expecting Nico to sweep them in year 1, I don't know. I think that's going to surprise some folks because I think the schedule is, a lot of people have said this schedule is really nice for Tennessee. And I'm like, I don't know if it's as nice as people think. It still feels 9-3 to me, and that the Georgia game might be a CFP elimination match in mid-November. That if Tennessee upsets them, then they get into the playoff and they finish 10-2. But I don't know. That's kind of where I'm leaning. Do you share that sentiment that like the schedule is not that great, and like getting Florida and Bama back to back, even at home with no bye week or anything else sandwiched in between, is actually kind of brutal for Nico and company?
Well, I do think that it's more favorable than several of the SEC schedules we can pull up. It's also not easy. So there has to be, I think there has to be some clarification when we talk about what Tennessee's schedule is. I've seen tougher for sure. I think a lot of it is spaced out favorably. Like in September, Tennessee has a warm-up game against Chattanooga, Kent State in between NC State and Oklahoma, which helps 2 weeks before that Arkansas game, because that's one that I think Tennessee needs to make sure that it's ready for. They have 2 weeks to get ready. They'll have a roster advantage. They'll be a better team than Arkansas, but that doesn't mean you go on the road and win automatically. That's not how it works in the SEC. If they come to play and Tennessee is thinking about Florida and Alabama right after, then what if you're in the middle of a game on the road in the second half and you're like, uh-oh. So Florida at home, I need to know more about Florida. What if they have success early, which is actually possible? The schedule is brutal that they're playing, but they get that Miami game and Texas A&M at home. What if they win both of them?
Yeah.
Like, that's not a crazy scenario. And all of a sudden Florida's like, hey, we're better than everybody else thinks. And they start to believe, and they bring that confidence to Knoxville. But it's still in Knoxville. You know you're going to have to play Florida. So if I'm choosing a path to playing Florida, it's probably right there. Yeah. Bama's far from a guaranteed win. Anybody that thinks that is crazy. So that's really difficult. But beyond that, 2 weeks to get ready for Kentucky at home. Mississippi State is homecoming. Vanderbilt is one of your road games. So you'll take that, be happy with it. The Georgia game's brutal. That's a terrible game to have to play, but that just is what it is.
But I would rather do that on the road every year, right? You don't want to burn the toss-up games at home. Like you don't, or like you want to have a Georgia game on the road because it's like if you win, cool. We saved great. We won on the road.
You're losing it if you're trying to make a case for the playoffs. So it's not easy. I think like we've been asked on the show, why is Tennessee an underdog at Oklahoma right now? I say, well, Oklahoma's still pretty good, and you're going to Norman, so it's not going to be easy. It's winnable. For sure.
I mean, Heupel's 4-4 on the road in the SEC the last 2 years. Like, it's a coin flip.
So the schedule's not easy. I just think it's more favorable than a lot of what SEC teams face. But the South Carolina game looked easy in 2022, and it wasn't. So that's why you have to be ready. You have to play the game. Nico is excited about playing on the road. He said that this week. And maybe there's something to that. We immediately got he's the Iceman. He's Casey Clausen, California cool. And we'll find out.
I love that. The new Iceman.
I think that mindset is real, by the way. Like Nico's not. I don't think he's just talking. I don't think he's bothered by the idea of we got to go to Charlotte to play NC State. We got to go to Norman, Oklahoma. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Again, he'll face challenges, but I don't think it's going to be because he's rattled by playing on the road. He's also just one player. His teammates have to help him. They can't have missed assignments and drop passes on the road because If Nico's making the right read and his teammates don't, or if he doesn't get protection against that Oklahoma defense, then that's going to be a problem too. But in terms of what Nico said, how he looks forward to playing on the road, I believe that.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing about Oklahoma I feel best about is just 5 new offensive linemen and Tennessee's pass rush. Like, I think that should be a recipe for Tennessee to have some success there. But I also just think people who are writing off Arkansas, like, that has real potential to get really weird. A desperate Arkansas team early by Petrino and that offense. I don't know. They could be feisty, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it's early. They still are believing that
willing
early.
to say they're going to win. They're going to beat Mississippi State at home. They're not losing that game. They're going to beat Vanderbilt. Kentucky, I'd be stunned if they lose. Like that one, I'm not willing to say I guarantee it, but I would just be so surprised if they lose at home with 2 weeks to get ready for Kentucky. And this is removing serious injury conversation. Like if Nico's not the quarterback, then that changes everything. And then they're going to win the other 3 non-conference games, not counting NC State. So there are a bunch of games they have to show up and win, but they're going to show up with an advantage in a lot of those.
Josh Ward, real quick here. Raiders, what does it look like going into this season? Are you feeling good? Are you excited about the Antonio Pierce era? Have you been grinding the Justin Fields Chicago Bears 2023 tape? You're like, I'm ready for Luke Getsy. I'm ready for Getsy. Is that the moniker in the Ward household right now? Like, what are you feeling going into this year for the Raiders?
So I've mentioned Jason Swain is my co-host. He is a Chicago Bears fan. They have the number 1 overall pick now on the roster. And Caleb Williams, he's all excited. I think the Bears are going to move in a better direction here. They finally got their guy at quarterback. And I don't feel that way about the team that I pull for, the Las Vegas Raiders. So I told Swain with how slick he likes to be, no Raiders talk on the show. It's a new policy. He keeps breaking the policy. But I like Gardner Minshew. I think he's a fun guy to pull for. There's just going to probably be continued drama, whether it's real or partially real, about Devontae Adams. Does he want to be there? How long will he be there? His frustration that he had last year, which a lot of people have seen now, was justified. So my hopes are not very high. They open with the Harbaugh brothers. They play Jim Harbaugh week 1 with the Chargers, and then they play John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens week 2. If they're 0-2, I'll just now throw the flag. That's it. Season's over. But I'm kidding here. I don't like the trash talk that they brought out for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. That feels really stupid. So if they can win some games and kind of be respectable, just if they can keep from embarrassing themselves through a lot of the season. I love Antonio Pierce. I love that he's the head coach. He's at least a head coach that people will respect, maybe out of intimidation at some points, but he brings it every day. So that I love. There are other aspects that still need to get cleaned up probably in the organization.
I mean, the Falcons haven't had a winning season in 6 straight years. I'm feeling cautiously optimistic right now. Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. You can't go wrong.
No problem. I mean, part of it is in the division with the Chiefs. So that's a problem. Great. I think the Chargers will probably start winning more with Harbaugh. Yeah. He's a winner. And then what if Bo Nix is the right guy? And Denver, then the Raiders are in a position where look, if you have the 4th best quarterback situation or even 3rd in your division, you don't have a great chance.
Man, we need the Vols to be good for Josh Ward. He can't have back-to-back weekends of just like, that's what I was telling folks last year. It was tough. Like, there were some offensive weekends for me back-to-back with like the Texas A&M game and then going to the Falcons on Sunday, and you're just like, whoa. I've got to find other ways to spend my weekend. This is hurting a little bit. This was painful.
Hey, nobody feel bad for me. I've done radio for a pretty good amount of time now in Knoxville. A lot of those years, Tennessee football wasn't doing great. Yeah. Tennessee baseball wasn't getting any conversation. Basketball's had a pretty good run now for a while, but even they dipped for a couple of years. I've had to talk to a lot of Tennessee fans that dealt with a lot of struggles for quite a while. Every day now, for the most part, I get to talk to Tennessee fans who are happy, who are excited, who are in a good mood, and I love that. I'm from Knoxville. This is my hometown. I live here. And I like to be around happy, excited people. And Tennessee fans are rightfully excited, believing in what's going on with UT athletics. And that's 12 months out of the year. Like there's no break now. It used to be that, by March or April, we hit the desert and we were going to see what would happen, what we're going to talk about for 4 months. Now baseball runs all the way through June. Tony Vitello has created 3 more months of exciting sports for Tennessee fans to follow. We get to July, there's media days in the middle of the month, so nobody feel bad for me. I get to talk to happy people every day. What else could I ask for?
I mean, as we're recording, like Tony Vitello, I think has added another coach to his staff. He's got 38 people now. Like, it's just the juggernaut. He's quietly just built the Death Star, like you said. It's just, and I think Tennessee basketball has a chance to be better than it was this past year. Yeah,
it's
all
amazing what's happening at Tennessee, and you never know how long what's going on is going to last. That's when things are good. That's when things are bad. But I think what's happening right now with Tennessee athletics overall is going to last for a while. I don't know if Tennessee's going to make the playoff. I don't know if Tennessee's going to win a national championship in football, but they're going to compete for a playoff spot. And if this offense with Nico is able to get to the playoff, then that means they're really good, and that means they can beat you in the playoff. So fans are believing, and fans should be believing in what's happening with Tennessee athletics.
I love it. Josh, you not only talk on the radio, but subscribe to the Josh and Swain newsletter on Beehive that comes out. How often does it come out?
So I post that every Friday morning. It's
Friday
free.
Morning.
Yeah. JoshandSwain.com is a direct URL if you want to subscribe. So it's free. It's kind of a rundown of what we talk about.
I like it.
During the week, some of our main storylines and a little bit of what's coming up next, but just trying to put all those big Tennessee topics and some SEC and college football topics together for a fun read on Friday mornings.
I love it. And then you can listen to Josh and Swain when?
12 to 3, Monday through Friday on the Sports Animal. Any Tri-Cities folks that are tuning in on AM 640, the Sports Monster in the Tri-Cities as well, plus podcasts. So we come at you from all angles. It's difficult to miss us.
I love it. Josh Ward, keep up the great work, sir, and try not to watch any preseason Raiders tape. We got to stay optimistic. It's almost football time in Tennessee.
Grind season is here, so bring on the exhibition football that we wish we had January through July. So I'll take it even if it's frustrating.
There you go. You heard it here first. Josh Ward is watching all 4 quarters of the Hall of Fame game tonight. Josh Ward, thank you so much, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
Yep, appreciate it. Thank you.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.